Hello everybody. Welcome to our webinar. This is the second in our series of the PPM Challenge and Opportunity Webcast series. This installment number 2 is about project communications and reporting. And my name is Jim Patterson and I'm with EPM Live. So this being the second in the series, we last week gave challenge number 1, which was prioritizing demand. And today we're going to give project communications and reporting. And for those of you who are interested, the next 2 weeks, next Thursday we'll be giving challenge number 3, providing value to all levels with PPM solutions. And then challenge number 4 would be improving PPM maturity. So that's what's coming up for us here in the next couple of weeks. So from a recap perspective, you can go online to our website and go into our events, and there's a recording of this Prioritizing Demand webinar if you missed it. We really covered demand management, the whole idea of centralized demand capture, demand visibility, standardized templates and forms to promote those things, automated workflows and stage gating, and project scoring, alignment, and prioritization of the demand that comes into the organization. We also got into some portfolio management concepts for portfolio evaluation and selection. We discussed metrics to consider when doing your portfolio selection, and we talked about different portfolio analysis tools that are available out there, especially from EPM Live. We also talked in the concept of how resource management factors into prioritizing demand, where we need to fit the prioritization within our capacity. So we have to do capacity planning and then figure out the capacity versus demand trade-offs for the portfolio. And then we talked about how we can do this with role-based resourcing or named individual specific resources, etc. We got into the cost and financial management stuff and how we'd actually build budgets and how we plan for what the cost or what the budget ask is going to be for those projects and be able to get financial visibility into that demand portfolio. And then we talked about ways that you can do what-if modeling to evaluate trade-offs and optimize and select the right work. So if you're interested in seeing the details on this, you can go to our webinars area under events at epmlive.com and view the entire session. All right, so getting into today's topic, let's talk about PPM challenges in the areas of project communications and reporting. One of the challenges that we have as organizations constantly in delivering projects is meeting stakeholder expectations, and this is a challenge for most organizations. The idea is that we're giving something to do, we're delivering something to those stakeholders, and how do we at the end of the day make them satisfied, make them feel that we delivered a successful project? A challenge for most organizations. Also, how do you provide current status of work? If we have distributed projects and maybe our folks aren't even working at all the same locations or even the same country, how do we maintain up-to-date status so that your stakeholders and your team and your internal management know the current status of how we're progressing and whether or not we're on track? Also, how do you keep team members informed and prevent them from making assumptions on where we are or what we should be doing? And if we make the wrong assumptions, how do we prevent rework due to lack of project awareness of the current status or information regarding the project? And just overall keeping teams informed. How do you provide a healthy project and successful project environment and reduce the risk of maybe being disconnected, not up to date or with the current information, and using manual methods? And also, how do you overcome project planning and scheduling tool limitations? Desktop tools that build schedules for projects, and how do you communicate those things out? Most of those tools aren't good at making those kind of communication and collaboration out of the box. They need some help. So these are challenges that organizations are facing constantly in the areas of reporting and communications. Some of the opportunities we have, given those challenges, are to improve and automate project communications so that we can be more effective at doing it. We can streamline and automate the reporting so that we can turn around status data and current progress in our projects much more quickly and be able to not spend a lot of time and effort and manual construction of projects, which can also lead to wasted effort that could be used elsewhere. We can also build collective project intelligence so that we can actually make sure that everyone's on the same page and has access to the same information at the same time. So we can promote and enable collaboration so that people can actually work together, they can trade ideas, they can have conversations and other things so that they can be effective in working together on those projects. And by making these processes more streamlined, we can definitely increase project productivity, hopefully getting our projects delivered quicker with higher quality and possibly even be able to do more projects in the course of a year or in the course of a time period. And I think one of the key things about having communication and reporting working well in your organization is the ability to have visibility into problems and changes that occur, and then give us the opportunity to enact change or to adjust or respond to that change at a time when we still have an opportunity to correct it or have some effect on that change in a positive fashion. So in the PPM and EPM capabilities arena here, we call this our big picture. The areas that we're going to focus on today are highlighted in the red boxes. You know, the reporting and communication is really going to focus on, you know, visibility of the portfolio of your projects, the collaborative tools and the collaboration aspects of that, and definitely the reporting aspects of things in the business intelligence area. So the main focus of what we're going to talk about today focuses in these areas of the big picture. So let's talk about project communication tools. You know, the goal here or the focus here is really about how do you keep your project teams together and informed, and how do you link them together in a way with information. So with these project communication tools, we want to share knowledge and better collaborate with our work teams to increase their productivity and efficiency. We also want to connect to other business productivity applications to make sure that within the context of the other tools that we're working with that we can actually have an environment that allows us to communicate effectively. So let's talk about some of the things that can help and automate, and we're going to talk in the context of the things that EPM Live offers in its tool sets and things that really can enhance the communication and collaboration aspects of your project. One of the key things that having an automated central system for these types of things, and one of the benefits is to have the idea of alerts and notifications. These can take the form of both active and passive alerts, ones that really much kind of come up into your face and say, here, this needs your attention, or passive alert, a place you can go to see what's on your plate, those types of things. But the key is that you want to be able to set up individual or team alerts and notifications as appropriate. You don't want to become your own worst spammer within your organization, but you want to make sure the appropriate things are brought to people's attention so nothing falls through the cracks. The key is to keep everyone automatically informed of project updates and changes, and give them reminders when actions or responsibilities are due so that we don't miss any deadlines. So the key here is you want to be able to set up alerts on items and with certain thresholds that are appropriate for what you want to do. A lot of this, and the most popular way people like to get notifications these days seems to be via email notification. And these email notifications could have a lot of different flavors to them depending on what you wanted to do. For example, when you're assigned a new task, should I have to go to a project management system and mine that data and try to figure out what I've been assigned? Or should I get an email that says, hey, I've got this new task assigned to me, and this is when I'm expected to do it, and this is when it's done, and maybe even be hyperlinked into the task so that you can drill in and look at more details on the specifics of what it is I've been assigned. So being able to see that and not be surprised or not miss anything is something that can be important on task assignment. Teams also need to know when things are falling overdue. In this case, you know, you get a notification when something has passed its due date. And the idea here is that rather than be surprised or forget, or if you have a total workload, it just might get lost in the noise of everything else that you're doing. To have something come up and actually tell you, hey, this is overdue, what you're going to do about it, and have a link to say to open the task and actually work on it or complete it, because perhaps you might have even just done the task and just forgot to status it. The idea is it's keeping us on track and keeping us from suffering the embarrassment of not delivering something is helpful when you get a prompt like this. You also might want notifications when the business process is requiring your attention. For example, you might have something that was submitted for approval. In this case, a portfolio item needs approval from some folks in order to move to the next step in the process or even to become an active project. The idea in a workflow approval process, somebody telling me I need to take a look at this, I need to review it, and I need to either approve or reject something, it's helpful for me to get that notification at the time when it's needed so I can do this very quickly, get quicker turnaround, and keep the ball rolling. Another type of notification that we offer is the ability on the threshold to see if an issue may be put on your plate. It may be something that affects you, something you've been assigned to deal with, but the key is as an issue comes up in the project, instead of having it logged somewhere and hidden and only be seen when you might happen to stumble upon it or happen to be looking at it in the system, it's nice to be presented to you in an active way. So it says, here I am, deal with this, review it, and then act on it as appropriate. The other thing is project updates. In an automated project management system with the teams, the project manager is going to get feedback from a variety of team members, and project teams can be fairly large. So, for example, someone may have statused their task as being completed, and the project manager may need to see that that's been done and accept the updates, say, into their project plan. A notification such as this one would say, hey, Mr. Project Manager, Ms. Project Manager, an update has come in. Take a look at it and accept it into your plan. And this way you keep the ball rolling, and you keep it in an automated fashion where team members all at the same time can be updating their tasks, but you essentially can receive them like this and actually update them right in your project plan or your schedule. Change requests. One key thing that's always a challenge for organizations is maintaining on top of changes that come up. So changes requests or changes that are made to elements, notifications, in this case the fact that the schedule status may have been gone from something that was a caution area or looking to go overboard, going overdue, is now potentially finished. And the idea is that you can see that something has changed within the solution. You might be using stage gating, once again an outgrowth of kind of like the workflow process, but if you use a stage gating process to take different projects or different work elements through different stages or gates in its life cycle, you may be handed something at a particular stage and be the owner of it for a certain stage gate. If you enable stage gating in our solutions in EPM Live, you can turn on notifications so that you get these types of updates. And once again, the updates that you do get are totally up to you. I'm showing you some examples of things that you can be notified on and things that you can get alerts on. You by no means have to do all of these, but I think it's helpful to know what's possible and be able to see what's most effective and applicable to the way you're going to manage your projects. Reassignments. Things happen all the time where resources you think were going to do it are no longer available and people get reassigned. I'd like to be notified when I'm taken off a task. I'd like to be notified when I've been put on a task I wasn't expecting to have. The idea of those types of things can be very helpful in making sure that, one, we don't duplicate effort, so we have two people working on the same thing, or worse yet, we have nobody working on it, meaning that both assume the other person was doing it. So the idea, notifications in this fashion can also be very helpful in making sure that resources are actually applying effort and the right resources are actually applying the effort to specific tasks or work elements. One of the things that is kind of nice, and we've used this here fairly successfully in our own company, instead of getting individual emails for everything that comes up, like tasks, for example, it might be nice to compile them into a package. Instead of getting emails all day long regarding work assignments and notifications and approvals and workflows and things like that, it's kind of nice sometimes to package it and just get it in one succinct email. Say, okay, here's all your overdue tasks, your active tasks, your new assignments, your workflow responsibilities for approval or review, and be able to compile those into a common package. So you just look at one email and review, okay, where am I at, what am I missing, what's new, type of thing, can be very helpful, and then also reduce the volume of the email that you get. One of the key things, and I think one of the powers of our EPM Live solutions, is that we have a fairly powerful and advanced and flexible notifications engine. So our tool will allow you to basically establish queries and establish thresholds on almost anything. So the idea being is if you want to know when something's coming up, when something's a day overdue, when something's coming up in the next 14 days in this example here, the idea here is that you can establish the rules and the queries to make sure that those thresholds and those triggers for when those alerts go are totally up to you and run those notifications as appropriate. So the key is here is we do run our solutions in SharePoint. We are SharePoint-based solutions, but by us providing these types of alerts and notifications capabilities, you can establish alerts and notifications well beyond the core capabilities that SharePoint allows within the native solution. Other collaborative and information sharing capabilities here to share with your team is the ability to post announcements. So, for example, to keep your teams informed of major announcements instead of sending out emails and those types of things, you can actually create an announcement text to share with your team in your projects or your project workspaces. So the thing is to keep them up to date with the latest news and project updates, important changes, and things that need to be available. And then when those things are entered, they can show up on your core project workspace. They can be made as prominent here on the front page as you like. The idea being is that it's a good, succinct way to make sure that everybody gets the same news in a very quick fashion and not also get lost in our ever-increasing volumes of email. Other capabilities for collaboration is the concept of discussion boards. The SharePoint-based platform gives us an opportunity here with our EPM Live tools to create project discussion boards. So our discussion boards are included in our project workspace templates that we deliver with EPM Live. And this way you can actually have threaded discussions and share information and project topics and have discussions with your team with real-time project collaboration. But also, instead of this stuff being lost in IM or an email and kind of spread around and distributed, a central place to have all these discussions here and capture this as we go through the life of the project. We maintain a rich set of history on the discussions and the decisions and the resolutions we've made as a result of those discussions. Something very helpful to have as part of your core project data. Another key piece that I mentioned in the outset of this is the fact that project managers are building schedules all the time and using tools like Microsoft Project, for example. And they're very good tools for what they do in building schedules and calculating critical path and doing resource allocation. Where they've always fallen short is in the concept of how do you communicate that plan out. And I've seen people jump through a lot of hoops in organizations. I've seen them emailing copies of the whole project plan around. I've seen them printing out PDFs of segments of the schedules to get to people to either view what they've done or even provide updates and mark up these PDFs of what they've gotten. The key is that we want to provide web-based, easily accessible, and updatable versions of the schedule so that the team can actually see and can get communicated out to them what's been planned for them, but also give them the ability to interact with that out in a web-based environment. So we provide that with our EPM Live solutions with our own web-based project planner, so you can actually build plans in your browser right in the EPM Live solution right in SharePoint. And another common popular way, and for folks like me that like using Microsoft Project, we have the ability with our project publisher to publish very robust details. So, any field of data that's available in Microsoft Project can actually be published out to EPM Live in any of the SharePoint sites. So it can, for visibility and consumption out in the browser without having to email those project plans around. There's one source of the news and one version of the project plan, and everybody knows that it's the current version of the project plan. And we have tools for agile and things for doing other type of iterative-based task planning. The key is to be able to see your project plans and schedule online, keeps everybody on the same page and everybody looking at the same information. So if we go to publish a Microsoft project plan out, have all the detailed line items out there, notice that I have a hierarchical plan rendered here in SharePoint. We could also have a Gantt chart view of this that's available to us. But notice that here I am in EPM Live in a SharePoint page, and I'm looking at a 4-tier hierarchy. SharePoint lists are flat by their nature. Our EPM Live components allow you to render those hierarchical work breakdown structures right here in your SharePoint views. And interact with them and provide updates in here as well. Another thing that the EPM Live solutions bring to the table is the ability to post comments on virtually any item in the system, whether it be a portfolio item or a project, whether it be a task, whether it be an issue, whatever it might be. You can actually post comments about those things to share information and your views, for example, on certain things with anyone on your team. What's nice about that, instead of having to do commenting on this separate and distinct from the work item or the element, it can now become a property or an attribute of that work item or element, so that wherever that is in the solution, people can actually reference and see the comments that have been made regarding that item. So a very popular thing that we've added that people seem to like in using our tool sets. Really fosters communication. So from a comment perspective, if, for example, I have a project, notice there's a little comment call out right there symbol that would be there for any item that had a comment on it. So you could see any item very readily and very visibly that actually has a comment associated with it. You click on that icon and up would come that comment box or dialog that we saw right on the prior screen. Another item from a communication perspective is this is the more passive alert that I was referring to early on, more of a reminders. And any work items, because you can take our EPM Live tools, Work Engine and Portfolio Engine and Project Engine, and pretty much make almost any item, you can take as broad or as narrow a definition of work as you want to. So for example, if I wanted to know about my tasks and my issues and my risks and my lower level action items and to-dos and my workflow approvals and other things like that, I can actually have a display right on my page in my solution or my landing pages that says, for me, here's my overdue work items, here's what's coming up, here's what's my upcoming work items, and I can see very readily there in a more passive fashion, should I care to look and click into those, I can see what's available to me. So really, it's more of a passive way to get the information as opposed to an email coming your way. Some folks would rather not get the emails, and they'd rather rely on a My Reminders page that they go onto their landing page and take a look at that so they're not dealing with more email. But other folks really want to have that active kind of prompting and want to be pinged with that information via some type of email or a message. But this is another common way people communicate. Also leveraging in SharePoint the fact that EPM Live is in SharePoint, we have the ability to create project wikis, which can be very rich in the data they contain. It's a real convenient way to collaborate on project information. We have in our standard template the ability to create wikis, and you can choose whether to leverage those or not. These wiki pages can be created to collaborate on project items such as artifacts and status and notes and other discussions and things like that. It's also, it seems to be a common way in a lot of technical organizations to communicate now anyway. And so the idea is if you wanted to make this part of your overall project communication mix, it's very easy to do so within our solution. And they're very easy to use, and they can be edited directly in your web browser. Another quick way to disseminate and gain and get information regarding certain projects is to set up RSS feeds. I know on a number of projects and topics in my day-to-day work, I have some key RSS feeds that I set up, and this way I can get critical project information automatically through those feeds. I actually have them come into my Outlook. And the idea here is that as this information gets updated, I can actually use the RSS feeds to keep myself informed. So subscribing to such RSS feeds is a good way to keep yourself apprised and in the loop on a project or any other related topic. So those are just some of the team-based communication and collaboration pieces that we have. Another area that we can use to really foster communication is performance reporting. And as opposed to, say, team interaction where we're communicating on actions and things that we're doing in a performance perspective, management wants to be up to date. They want to be collaborated to in a way that makes sense for them. So the idea from a performance reporting perspective we like to leverage pre-configured reports, though you can make your own, and dashboards to gain insight into real-time project status. So things like charts and graphs and other types of reporting can actually provide in an automated fashion and with very little effort other than updating the data itself as a good way to get that visibility and keeping management informed and communicated to in a way that helps them fulfill their responsibilities of oversight. One thing that we provide in this solution that can be very helpful is very easily accessible project workspace metrics. Here I've highlighted in red some project health KPIs where you could have some formula-driven graphical indicators, or they could be just manually selected if you wanted them to be. But the key here is in these different project dimensions, it's very nice to be able to go in and say, how are we doing on schedule? It looks like we're going yellow on this, or it looks like maybe we're falling a little bit off the tracks on that. Looks like we're doing well on budget and work effort. So maybe we have too many risks and issues on our plate, and maybe there's changes that are starting to overwhelm us on the project on here. The key is we take a look at that and then drill into the project details and take a look at what the problems are and what's driving the nature of the problems there as well. As far as project workspace metrics as well, notice that we have a component on the example that I showed you here where it says all active work by due, and then very quickly it's bringing to my attention all the work that's overdue. Instead of having to navigate through, say, hundreds of tasks in a project schedule to find out what's late, here it's something that's bringing me up visible information on what is late and just kind of isolating it and highlighting it for me so I get that information very, very quickly. Other things are, it says latest activity in the last 7 days in the bottom left of that screenshot. And that's where we actually provide an activity stream that actually shows what transactions or what updates have been made specifically to this project task, project plan, or this project in general. So we can see who's made updates and what changes have been made. Kind of almost like a stock ticker, and how it basically will just keep logging those and showing you what the most recent changes are. Also, instead of just within a project, like we showed you earlier on here, is that portfolio level visibility. So instead of looking at a single project workspace, EPM Live and Work Engine and Portfolio Engine can actually roll up all of your projects and show you those types of health metrics across an entire portfolio or whatever subset of the portfolio is applicable and of interest to you. So the idea is we can establish very flexible portfolio level views to give this type of information and status. The KPIs, once again, that look at the multiple dimensions and drill down into the specific projects as we see fit. The key here in managing or reporting to management is if we can actually provide this information as a natural output, if we just update our individual projects and have dashboards and views like this be produced automatically, then our responsibility to keep our management informed is being actually met simply by working and maintaining the project itself and not having a whole separate project or exercise to create views like this, which many organizations are doing. Today, I know many organizations that when we talk to them, are spending a day or two, a person day or two a month per person, actually grabbing data from different data sources, combining them and boiling them down into a common form or format like a PowerPoint or a Word document. And at the end of the day, here's the report, but the report itself is a project because it takes a significant manual effort to pull those things together. Using mechanisms like this precludes having to do that. Also, we can actually provide, once again, in this whole idea of reporting being a natural output of the system or a natural output of just managing the projects, is that we can have automated status reports, for example. So push button reports by just saying, hey, I want to run a status report on this particular project, this Xbox DVD upgrade. And the idea is whatever content you want, we got templates out of the box for all this stuff, but the idea is here we get the KPIs, things like schedule and cost status, milestone completion. It can include things like issues and risks. And the key here is that these types of on-demand reports really are as simple as pushing a button, and you can actually view these reports online or export them to common formats. So if people want things pushed to them, you can put them out in PDFs or Word or Excel format to the people that want to have those things in a tangible, I want to touch and feel this report type of form. But once again, this helps eliminate manual report production. We do it out of the box with our templates with SQL Server Reporting Services, SSRS, but with our reporting database, you could really tap that database with other tools or any reporting tool that you might have a preference for within your organization. The key is, once again, natural output, low effort to actually generate the report. The effort really comes in keeping your project data up to date. Another thing people like to do is do more narrative, subjective-based status reports to their management, as opposed to, hey, percent completes and actual work spent and other things that you might status in a scheduling tool. There's that more narrative or subjective type of status reporting. Things like, tell me about what you've accomplished this last period. What do you have coming up? What are the hurdles or obstacles that you've had, that you've experienced? Any other comments that you want to make on a subjective basis regarding that? And people typically today are doing these things in Word documents, they're doing them in emails, they're doing, etc. By being able to capture these things online and actually fill them out and present them in a streamlined, automated fashion to the project manager, for example, these things are not only readily available in electronic format then, also the data, instead of being in these separate artifacts or documents or emails, are now readily available in the system's database so that we can actually include that as content with other data that we're rendering in dashboards and reports. So the key here is getting this once again into the central database once it adds to, once again, that rich content and multiple dimensions of project information that are available through a solution like EPM Live. Very popular for management reporting is the concept of dashboards, graphical dashboards, charts, combination dashboards like this one where you might have the project health metrics at the top. You may use our charting web parts to render charts and graphs and pie charts and things like that to render key elements so you can graphically see how you're doing on certain metrics. Also, having things like objective data and lists like the overdue issues show down below those charts that support the graphs up above can give you a combination of rich detail or very discrete pieces of data that actually support the charts. And the key here is, with this dashboarding, is that you have a lot of flexibility on how you want to do these in SharePoint and EPM Live. You can use our components, our web parts, even some of your own, but you can lay them out with different page layouts, different content, and also leverage different dashboards for different types of audiences based upon roles and permissions. So the key is that very quickly someone could go to this dashboard and get the view and the information that they're looking for at a glance very quickly without having to dig for the information. Another key thing that people like to do is use tools that they know and love. So for example, particularly Excel, a lot of folks out there have very good skill sets with Excel spreadsheets. Why not leverage a tool like that to actually connect to our reporting database and pull the data and then be able to slice it, dice it, pivot it, chart it, and do anything you want for analysis any way you want with all the skill sets and the tools that you've come to know and love in using a tool like that. So the key here is you can leverage tools like Excel or Access or other things like that to render data from our project management or portfolio management system, and then use it to do some very flexible reporting, potentially on somewhat outside of the tool, leveraging live data from the tool. So the key here is that to communicate up to management, if you have specific ad hoc reporting needs, instead of going and building a report writer for a specific need that you might have, why not render that data, pull that data into Excel, and then slice it however you want using the skills that you've garnered over the years in doing those types of things. Then there's the concept of issue and risk reporting. Key aspects of managing your projects and communicating is as issues arise, not only do we need to log them, we need to make people aware the issue exists. So from a communication perspective, it's not just reporting, but it's being able to communicate those issues. It's the ability to assign those issues to people and assign responsibility for resolving those issues. And if you think about risks as things that we've identified that potentially can become issues for our project and are potentially can have adverse effects to our project, it's good to log those and make people aware of those as well. And at a minimum, maybe even assign someone to monitor that risk to make sure that risk doesn't bite us in the execution of our project. So for example, here in our solution, maintaining issues in each individual project or project workspace in the EPM Live's work engine and SharePoint, for example, is easy to do. It's leveraging some enhanced capabilities, but springboarding off of core SharePoint list capability. What we do add to the mix, though, is the ability to, instead of having to go to each individual project or each individual project workspace to log and or monitor those issues, we can actually go to a central place and run a view or a report that gives me an interactive rendering of issues across all projects. So instead of having to do this on a project-by-project basis, if I'm looking at it from a management perspective or somebody who's responsible for managing a multiple number of projects, we can maintain them for each project, but then get easy visibility and interaction with that information from a higher level at a roll-up or aggregate level. And so that's really a nice way to communicate this without having to dig into a number of different project workspaces. Same thing holds true with risks. As you log those, risks can be done the same way. And things like our comments capability, workflow capability, and other things can be all tagged to any of these items. And by default, most people do those types of things to enable the process of managing and communicating these risks and getting them resolved or dealt with. The key here is that we can actually have a library of standard reports, and we do. We have, I think it's about 60 standard reports in our report library. So, for example, any element in the system, or any item in the system, so it could be issues and risks like we talked about. You can communicate on things like all your change requests and the status of those, and whether they've been approved or not. Backlog items for things like defects and features and things like that that are coming up in the mix. Resource elements, things like that. We can actually have this kind of roll-up across all projects like we showed you with the issues and risks across any item or any element that you're keeping in the system. So I'd like to use the example of lessons learned. You've got lessons learned across your projects. For example, you might have a list of those and you may capture and log those. Why not have and roll them up in the aggregate so we can see potentially if there's some common threads or lessons learned across multiple projects, so maybe we can improve our knowledge base and so that we can take heed on some things and make sure that we don't run into some issues we've run into in the past and improve that in our organization. From an issue and risk perspective, just like any other dashboard, we can start graphically displaying these types of things. So we can start looking at how many issues do we have. Are we gaining on our issues? Are we opening issues faster than we're closing them? What priority are we have low priority issues or predominantly very high priority issues? Do we have issues that are assigned or opened by specific resources more than others? So there's a lot of ways that we can slice through this graphically but have very detailed data associated with this and communicate this to whoever we want to give access to this information in our solution. And you can render and extend that same concept to the whole concept of change management. I mean, change management is a whole process and methodology in and of itself, but the idea here is to be able to log and capture change requests as they come into projects. One thing about managing projects, it's really about the management of change. Change will occur, and so the key here is to capture them, to put them through change approval, and status those items. So, for example, as we're monitoring and enacting those changes, we want to be able to log it, capture the elements around that, things like what is the change, what is the benefit of the change, what would be the result of the detriment of not doing the change, what kind of impacts do we have, schedule impact, cost impact, resource impact, what do we get for doing that change. All those types of things can be then captured, and then when approved, we can actually add it to the approved work mix in a particular project. The key is, instead of doing these in separate documents or forms, why not do it in the context of this central system and have that data part of our rich database of information about the project. And once again, we can leverage workflow, standard SharePoint workflows, or any workflow engine that supports SharePoint. To the idea is that those change requests typically are something that should be approved. We don't just add changes willy-nilly to projects and decide that we're going to work on those. If we really want to maintain control and some semblance of order to managing a project, you should be working on approved changes as a best practice. So if we streamline the process through submittal and requesting, have them routed to the appropriate people for review and approval, and then once approved they become active and then we work on them, we can really automate this process and streamline that and increase our productivity in getting changes enacted. Another aspect is the whole idea of resource reporting, and this is just one other dimension I thought I'd bring up here towards the tail end of this, because from a resource reporting perspective, it is a dimension that, for example, is not easy to get in, say, a pure SharePoint deployment. You know, resource allocation and time phase quantification of that is not something that's easy to get to in a lot of solutions. I mean, just in SharePoint out of the box. So, for example, if we start allocating work and effort and items to people within an organization by using the tools in EPM Live, in this case I'm showing Work Engine, to be able to look at all of that workload across all projects and all types of work in the aggregate and be able to see there in that histogram where that means I am over or under allocated based upon my availability or capacity, that's a very helpful piece of information. For example, whether I'm a project manager or a functional manager who's looking to assign a resource to yet another piece of work, wouldn't it be nice to be able to see this information before and see what the current commitment is before I layer on yet another piece of work in a time frame that may already be overspoken for. We actually have capabilities within Work Engine to actually view that in the task. Like if I'm assigning somebody to a task, I can actually open that up and I can actually check how that resource is already allocated in the time frame that that task is looking to be done, to see if it's even advisable assignment, or should I look for somebody else in order to do that work. So the key here is that we get visibility, and in cases like this tool here, it actually is a what-if interactive type of mode, so you can actually play with moving things around and moving projects and work around on assignments and seeing how we can tailor the workload to our capacity. So with that, I think most of what we wanted to talk about today, I really wanted to show you all through the slide examples and discussion. But you know, to see some of this stuff come to light, it really is an interactive tool set. This stuff that I discussed and showed you as far as communication and collaboration tools and reporting, it all exists in the solutions from EPM Live right out of the box. So for example, things like the KPIs and reporting and viewing that up on a landing page, looking at your project announcements that the project manager may want to make. You know, the metrics and tools that you might want to get, the portfolio level visibility, so I can look at portfolio metrics across all projects. These are the types of things that we can all work with. If I drill into a project, notice there's a comments button here, so I can actually go in and I can view and see comments regarding a particular project here, for example, and that comments feature is readily available to us here within the solution. If I drill into a specific project workspace and look at all the elements that we had in there, things like our discussion threads and our team discussions, you know, our libraries and lists by having a project wiki page that you can actually establish. Document libraries is another great way to communicate and have those tied to workflows with check-in and check-out and version control. You know, the health metrics we talked about here, the being able to see what's overdue on a project very quickly, or see activity streams on what changes that might have been made to the project, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the key here is these tools are really provided by EPM Live and in Work Engine right out of the box with very little configuration on your part. So these are things that aren't just theories. I think they're things that can help us, but these things actually exist today, and we can actually leverage them almost on demand, especially if you sign up with us online. If I go back up to a more enterprise level, and look at it from a portfolio or enterprise level, I can go into and look at our report libraries. And some of the reporting and communications that we talked about really center around the things that are available in our report center. So here, for example, we have categories of reports that are out of the box where I can start looking at things like, as I mentioned, my issues report. I said, I went in here and I said, let me look at all active issues, or I can see them sliced by different ways. What's nice is it's going into all the project workspaces, and it's going to render me all the issues or active issues across all the projects, meaning I don't have to drill into each individual project. If I wanted to go down and I wanted to look at an issues dashboard, I could click on a dashboard, and that's a pre-configured dashboard that we provide. But the idea, the graphical with the more discrete, detailed data that supports the graphs is all made available to us here on issues here. Now, we provide a bunch out of the box. That doesn't prevent you using basic SharePoint skills in our components to basically create your own dashboards that really are tailored specifically to the metrics that you want to look at. So basically, in each of these categories, you notice there's a ton of reporting that's available to you right out of the box. Now, one of the things that we have in this report center is also our SQL reporting services reporting, which allows us to leverage a library of SSRS reports. And in this case, the project status summary I showed you is really, truly a push button. Whatever the data set is of my project right now, I could say, let me see a project status report for this Xbox DVD upgrade. And if it runs it, I can run it in this viewer. And this viewer will allow me to see all the information, the header, the KPIs, schedule, cost, milestones. I believe there's a second page here with issues and risks. And the idea is I can view these right here in the SSRS viewer, right in the EPM Live solution, or I could put this out to a common format like PDF or Excel or Word for distribution. I mean, these things can actually be even run on a timed, scheduled job and automated and sent out to a distribution list. Much more streamlined than the way many people are actually doing reporting today. So the key here is, I think, want to be sensitive to everybody's time, is these things do all exist out of the box. And if you really want to check this out further, the things that I showed you today were really focused around Work Engine and Portfolio Engine. But if you go to our website at epmlive.com, not only can you learn more about this, you can also request a free trial or get into a live demo environment pre-populated with data like I was just showing you. So you can get hands-on with the solution and actually see for yourself the things that are there. We offer these as both a licensed solution and as a more hosted SaaS model. So for folks that want to get up and running, and when I say things are out of the box, if you subscribe in a more of a SaaS model, we can provision you an environment and almost have you ready to go with all the capabilities you need to start managing projects day one in that online solution. And not much more different than that other than the installation that would happen for doing it in-house in your own SharePoint servers. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and attention today and your attendance. This is the completion of our second installment here on project communication and reporting. And please join us now for the third installment of this challenge, would be called Providing Value to All Levels, and that'll be next Thursday at the same time. So once again, contact us here at sales or info at epmlive.com. So sales at epmlive.com or info at epmlive.com if you have any questions. But epmlive.com is the website you want to go to for more information. Hope everyone has a great day, and we'll see you next week.